Thanks. The November 22nd, 2024 Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting is now in session. It's noted for the record that commissioners are attending this meeting via the web, and a quorum of commissioners is present for today's meeting. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Ramirez.
Here.
Commissioner Weller.
Here.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Here.
And Chair Sapoff.
Here. Members of the public have the opportunity to provide written public comments to the commission for this meeting. A full copy of the comments that were received, excuse me, I apologize. We didn't receive any. Can I get the clerk to confirm that we did not receive any public comments?
That is correct. No public comment was received.
Okay. And just one other item. Could you let the commission know who else might be attending this meeting?
Yes, joining us today is Nate Carter from the Department of Justice.
Great. Thank you very much and welcome. Let's move to the first agenda item, the director's report. Director Wells.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Sapoff and commissioners. Starting with some lottery news. Earlier this month, lottery rolled out the next phase of organizational changes that we hope will help us be more aligned and more strategic. This included reporting changes in our business services division and the creation of a new strategy office led by our deputy director. Within this office, we have moved a number of roles from across the agency, which we believe will be key to our strategic success. The strategy office is going to drive our portfolio performance, help us with strategic planning, along with leadership collaboration to ensure long and short-term outcomes. So we're very excited about this and moving forward with this new alignment within our organization. As far as the Assistant Director of Operations role, we continue to work through that interview process and are hopeful that we'll have that position filled by the end of the calendar year. Last month, the Multi-State Lottery Association sent a number of U.S. lottery directors, including myself, to the World Lottery Summit, which was held in Paris, France. These summits are held every 2 years and allow lotteries and vendors from around the world to interact, learn, and collaborate with one another. This opportunity to sit in person and interact with my colleagues from around the world was incredible. I appreciated the opportunity to attend that Muscle provided and came back with many valuable concepts, some new connections, which are going to help our organization become a better organization, and have been actually in communication with a number of them ever since, working on some initiatives. So it was a great experience. Sherry's, to give you a little update, it's been a few weeks since Sherry's closed their remaining Oregon locations, and I can report that we've now recovered all of our video lottery terminals from those locations. That is still a little early to identify any revenue impacts directly related to the closures, but our team continues to monitor sales for any noteworthy shifts. Preliminarily, it appears that the play from the Sherry's closures has been absorbed by nearby video lottery retailers, but we'll continue to monitor and give you updates as the months proceed. I'm sure you've seen in the media that Sherry's does, in fact, owe lottery approximately $900,000, but we're working through our standard processes and hope to regain payment soon. Super exciting. After a 3-day weekend or any holiday, our player services department typically expects to be very busy from a long weekend. However, following Veterans Day, they set a record with more than 303 claims being received at the Salem headquarters and 450 at the Wilsonville Payment Center. In Wilsonville, that equated to almost a claim a minute for the 8 hours that they were open. This increased traffic, we believe, is linked mostly to the popular new video lottery feature called Fort Knox, which we launched in October, the end of October. Fort Knox is a progressive bonus jackpot up to $5,000 that's in addition to the game's top single spin award. Thank you to the player services team who put in longer hours to make sure that we were covered and provided a great customer service during the surge in winning claims. Additionally, I'd like to thank the rest of our staff. We expected these surges on the following Mondays and had asked for volunteers. So staff from across the organization have actually volunteered for the last few Mondays to come to Player Services and help players with their claims. So thank you to everyone that's helped with this, and we're excited about all the new winners. Our first quarter of fiscal year 25 progress dashboard has been posted to our external website, sharing and updating our progress, which includes areas such as security and technology, our financial stability, leadership milestones. All are an expectation from Governor Kotek's office. The dashboard offers highlights regarding accomplishments and what we have in progress for key projects. So that will remain updated as a quarterly status update on our website. Financially, the draft October financial statements have been included in today's meeting materials, so you should have those to look at, and will be brought to the commission for approval in January. Moving on to a sales update. Sales overall for our games are down slightly from last year by 4.6%. Scratch-Its are our bright spot right now, up 8.4% year over year, and are also ahead of our best year, so business year 21, by 4%. So we're excited about our Scratch sales right now. Our $20 price point game is up 36% from last year. And additionally, the $30 holiday ticket has helped push holiday sales to 31% ahead of last year and accounts for 1/3 of all holiday sales. For jackpot games, an $800 million Mega Millions jackpot in September was overshadowed by a $1.5 billion jackpot in August of 23, which is why Mega Millions is down close to 24% year over year. Powerball sales are showing the same trend, behind from last year by almost 65%, due in part to the billion-dollar jackpots in 23. We just haven't seen the same jackpot gains in this year. Megabucks sales are up nearly 30% from last year, thanks to last month's $9.5 million Megabucks jackpot. Video lottery sales are consistent with last year and up slightly by 0.6%. Sports betting remains positive, with a turnover up 22% from the same time last year. Moving on to some winter stories. Alvern of College Place, Washington, stopped at a Fred Meyer while visiting his daughter in Medford. He picked up 2 Oregon Monster Scratch-Its and let his wife do the scratching. To her surprise, one of the tickets matched a symbol for $30,000, which is the jackpot prize for this game. The couple plans to use the money towards bills and to build a new fence at their home. Diana of Lebanon was all smiles when she came in to claim her $20,000 prize. Diamonds fell into place while playing Big City 5 Diamonds at her favorite place, Bobo's Eats and Grog. She's planning to use the money to spoil her 3 grandchildren this Christmas. And Shane from Madras is one of our latest Fort Knox winners. On Tuesday, he visits his local Elks Lodge for Taco Tuesdays and decided to try the new game. Shortly after sitting down, he hit the jackpot for $7,505 and plans to use the prize money to buy his wife something special. And that concludes my director's report for this month.
Thank you, Director Wells. Are there questions or comments from the commission? I have a couple. First, I wanted to congratulate Ty on her role in heading up the new strategic group. And I'm going to be really interested in seeing how that can drive the progression towards our goals. Obviously, one comment, and I'm not even sure this is accurate, I'm thinking through your comments about the jackpot and the year over year on that. When I look at the basically the metrics on our financial progress from 23 to 25 feels like it's pretty flat for the last 2 years. There's not, and so at some point, not today, maybe you could bring to the commission, I know that the jackpots help us, right? But do they do a lift that then is steady, or is it a big lift and then it just drops when we go back down to? So I'm not asking for an answer today, but I am curious how that impacts, because from the graphs, it just feels like we're just sort of hovering at the same level. On the Sherry's, I do have a couple of questions, Mike, and if we don't know the answers, possibly the DOJ attorney that's visiting today will know the answers. It's really comforting that we've got our terminals back. Our actual equipment is back in our hands. I noticed that a couple things you said, that it looks like what we would have gotten from those shares is being absorbed by nearby lottery retailers. I'm trying to figure out, are we talking about numbers of players? Or are we talking about the actual revenue we were seeing from Sherry's? Are we seeing it pick up in the nearby areas?
It's actually a little too early to answer that question for you. We needed probably another month or two to actually see that play. But, as I said, preliminarily, it looks like that revenue that we did generate from there has moved to other retail locations, but
You're not sure.
trend, we need another month or so to see kind of what those trends are. So
that makes sense to me, and it also makes sense to me because it's sort of a fungible service or product that we deliver.
right.
So it makes sense. I just thought we should maybe look at that, because that's a pretty significant amount of machines now that have come back. And right. And then the other, you mentioned that we're hoping to see repayment. Do you know, or does our visitor from the Department of Justice know, are we considered a general creditor for that repayment, or we're not secured? So would we be considered a general creditor, so we get whatever the bankruptcy is, like pennies on the dollar? Do we know? And I'm not even sure if a repayment for them is that significant. So
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Nate, I don't know if you know the answer off the top of your head.
Our visitor from the Department of Justice is not going to provide legal advice in the context of a public meeting.
okay.
But if an answer to that question is desired, talk to the director. He can ask me a question and I'll work on it.
I would like just that to come back, and it doesn't have to come back even in a public meeting. It can come back otherwise, but it would be interesting. And frankly, Mike, if the dollars that we're talking about are insignificant, it's not even an answer I'm concerned with. I just can't tell in terms of a repayment. Is it significant to us? Is it not significant to us?
Okay. Yeah, we'll get that answer to you. And I was going to comment too on the jackpot prizes. Your question is actually a question that's being addressed nationally for everybody that participates in those drawings, because it has been pretty flat and you're kind of at the mercy of those jackpot runs to revenue. So there's a lot of discussion on consistency. Is there a way to make those jackpot runs a little more consistent and predictable? So yeah, we can get you some more information on that. But your questions are also the questions many of the directors are having right now when it comes to those national games. Good.
It's not extra work I'm piling on you.
No, it's not. Lots there that we could talk about. So,
well, thank you. Those are all the questions I had. Unless there's nothing more from the commission, we could move to the minutes of the previous commission meeting. Anything more from? Okay. The minutes of the previous commission meeting have been circulated to the commission in advance of today's meeting. If there are no changes to the minutes, is there a motion to approve?
I move that the minutes of the Oregon State Lottery Commission meeting held on October 25th, 2024 be approved as final as presented today.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Weller,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Aye.
Chair Safoff.
Aye. For the record, the motion has passed. I think that what moves us to our casino rulemaking. and Chris. And I wanted to also preface this by the materials were very, very helpful. And just from my point of view, the casino rule that we're looking at is critically important and very significant to the company, the lottery. I think it's really important we think through this, and if we can't have that discussion today, we have it at our next one. So thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Chair Sathoff, Commissioners, Director Wells. For the record, my name is Chris Scaro. I'm the Rules and Policy Analyst for Lottery. And as the chair said, we're looking at 2 rule changes to our casino prohibition framework. And so for those in our audience who aren't familiar, the Oregon State Constitution does prohibit casinos in Oregon. And so since the 90s, with the introduction of video lottery terminals, Lottery has used its casino prohibition framework to ensure its retailers don't operate as a casino. And so when we talk about the framework, that includes our casino prohibition rule that I'm going to talk about today, but it also includes other state laws and rules that prevent casinos, such as the state law that limits the number of terminals we can place in each retailer. And so recently, as we had talked about a few months ago, the legislature was interested in this topic, and they formed a work group and invited us to participate. And while we really were not the focus of the work group, we did take the opportunity to do an internal review of our framework and identify areas for improvement, and that review led to the 2 changes we're presenting today. So the first change would set and rule minimum food service standards for our at-risk retailers. And we call these our limited menu retailers, cafes, small eateries. Under the rules, they would need to have a certain number of menu items and 8 dining seats for their patrons. And so we do think our retailers can manage to meet these minimum standards, but we see some value in clearly stating in rule what we think is minimally acceptable for food service. And the second change is along the same lines, where we would set some more objective compliance criteria for those retailers who are subject to inspection due to having annual non-lottery sales less than half of their total income for the year. So under the current rule, the factors that we look at are somewhat subjective, like the overall history and appearance of the establishment, and we'd like to rewrite those to be more objective and measurable. So there's things like how many menu items they offer, whether they have non-lottery entertainment, whether they have gambling references in their name, or whether they advertise non-lottery products more than lottery products. So again, we think this brings more certainty to retailers to understand what we think is required for casino compliance. And so we are very interested to hear from our retailers on these changes. So earlier this week, I sent out the draft rules to all of our video retailers, and I let them know that we are taking public comment until the end of December. And so I will plan to report back to you in January on that. And in the meantime, as the chair said, we do have more information in the meeting materials for those who are interested. So happy to talk more about this, but otherwise that is all I have for you this month.
Great. Questions or comments? Looks like Commissioner Weller.
Yeah, Chris, I read through the whole thing here, and it's well put together. And once I got through the whole thing, I finally understood it. And perhaps it's because I'm getting older. Thank you.
No.
And I have a lot of experience in the accounting field. It basically starts out by saying the objective criteria: if a retailer's annual non-lottery sales are less than 50% of their total income, and that gets repeated in several places in here. My problem was that as an accountant with all the experience that I have, there are multiple definitions out there of income. And the only suggestion I would make, which you can throw in the trash can if you want, and I will not be upset about it, would be consider changing the word on where it says 50% of their total income. If you read through the whole thing, you find out that what you're actually talking about is 50% of their total revenues or total sales. If, you know, to me, the first question that I had was what income? If you look at the lottery commission, if you look at the lottery operation, there are about 4 different labels for income. We're actually tied. There's a total revenue, there's a net revenue, there's a gross profit, there's a net income. So there are multiple definitions that are available. The way I read this, what we're really comparing is sales to sales. And we also get to the point where we're talking about lottery compensation being in excess of 50% of their overall total. To me, I finally ended up in my little head coming to the conclusion what we're talking about there is lottery compensation versus non-lottery sales. Instead of saying that the total sales is lottery compensation plus all this other stuff, it could be converted, and I don't know how much effort it's going to be, so don't do it if you don't want to. But to say if the lottery compensation exceeds their non-lottery revenue. Because if lottery compensation, the only way it can be more than 50% is if it exceeds everything else that it's being compared to. So I ended up rereading it and saying, okay, we're not dealing with income and we're not dealing with a 50% factor. We're saying is their lottery compensation greater than their non-lottery sales. But what I'm looking for there is potential clarification, not qualification, clarification, particularly as we're dealing with all kinds of people from all levels of education and experience and everything else. So you're going to have a lot of different income definitions that I think might be easier to compare if we clarified that a little bit.
Thank you. That's really good feedback.
Other questions or comments from the commission? Chris, I have more of a process question. I think I understand the process here. I've actually not thought about this in other rules, and it did strike me in this one. We put a proposed rule out and then we go out and we seek comments. This proposed rule will have, I think, a fairly significant impact on our retailers. Although I think some of your commentary is that you don't think it's going to change that much for most of our retailers. Do we know when we've put this out there that, do we have any clue that this is something that our retailers would be able to adjust to? And it's not, so sort of like, you wouldn't ask me to put together a rule like this because I wouldn't know where to start, okay? I know you guys know your business, but I also know if I was doing something that impacted our customers, I would probably be seeking some direction from customers, at least through the course of my job. And I'm just wondering, have we talked to any retailers at this point, or are we just, we're going to rely upon, here's our straw dog, you guys all react to it, and then we'll take your comments in. It's sort of more a process question than anything.
So that is the process we're using here. And we're very open to feedback, and we can adjust the rules in response to the feedback we get. But you're right, there are other ways we could have gone about this, but I think we worked really closely with the folks who do these inspections, who know these retailers, and I think we felt we were in the ballpark, but we're open to hearing that we weren't, or
No, that's what I was looking for.
Okay.
I've talked to someone who's
Yeah.
been out there and is thinking through how this would work. We're not totally off the mark, as we don't think we are. Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that to her point, we do these inspections now, right? This rule has already been in place. We know that most of our retailers comply with this rule. This is really trying to make it much more objective. It's currently pretty subjective when we go out and do an inspection. And so we're trying to make it more objective, very clearly outlined in rule what the expectations are to make it easier for us to do inspections, but also easier for the retailers to understand what items and what does their business need to look like to be in compliance. So
Yeah.
That's really the overall goal. And we don't see this right now based on our history seeing this as a huge impact on them. It's really just trying to clarify the expectations.
Yeah, I would think that the clarity would be something they would welcome. I was just assuming that we're in the ballpark, that the clarity would be welcome. And the last is, and I did read through, but I didn't actually, I paid mostly attention to the changes. I thought in the past, we had sort of if we identified a problem, limited, whatever we call the retailer, problem retailer, that they had time to correct. Are we still doing that, or with the more objective approach, would we just say you're cut off?
No, they'll still have so there's two prongs. So there's the minimum food standard that they need to have, which is regardless of their income analysis that Commissioner Weller was talking about. And those will be treated like a regular compliance violation. So yeah, they'll get a letter and a, time to come into compliance. And then on the in the inspection process, they would still go on to the casino plan, which I think gives them several months to come.
I'm not questioning that. I just want to know, do they have an ability to correct if we identify that they're not meeting our rules? Okay.
They will, yeah.
Great. Any further comments, discussion? Okay. I think that takes us to our final agenda item, Commissioner communications or any other business. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not hearing or seeing any hands raised. So with that, this concludes today's meeting of the Oregon State Lottery Commission. The next meeting is scheduled on Friday, December 20th. And I want to thank you all for attending. The meeting is adjourned. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.
Thank you, one and all.
Bye-bye.